Here we have the latest plane of my range. It's the JMW YAK130. Basically this plane uses a different build method to what I normally use. This is a score and fold, not a score and fold, a score and roll design. Basically I score the internal surfaces of the foam and roll the foam in a bath of hot water. So all the parts are designed that can fit in a standard sink size. That's one of the benefits of this, and basically you get great results. I wanted to do that kind of method rather than a laminating method, as I do find the laminating method a little bit tedious with all the parts you have to cut out. But obviously on the other side of the coin, this is a little bit more tricky with the rolling techniques, because sometimes obviously if you haven't got the foam hot enough, it doesn't roll and just fractures and cracks. But basically it's a technique, once you get used to doing it, it's quite straightforward, to be honest. And you just have to be persistent, and you get great results. Basically with this plane I wanted to have multiple features, bigger wingspan, very scale look, bombs which will be not evident on the maiden obviously, but for other flights maybe these are possibly something I will put on. They are a part of the plans anyhow. Just quickly go over the plane, what the features are. We have air intake blanking facility. These drop down, block the air intakes. It's not a complete block, but you get the picture of what it is to achieve. Also we have an air brake here that flips up. These two operate at the same time. That's what I will use when coming into land. I have front slats which operate at the same time as flaps, and I have independent ailerons which are with 4x4 to the elevons, which is also elevator obviously. Now what I have also done with this plane is created a new canopy, which is vacuum formed mould. So this is a standard one that you'll make. For this vacuum forming, you can see a video on my YouTube channel. Basically it's this canopy filled with plaster, made a vacuum forming machine, made a mould, and that's basically it. So that's simply that. Pull that off there, and there we have the vacuum form canopy there. So that's how that works. Not very good fitment there. I think I've actually just pulled off the magnet, typical on a walkthrough video. Have a quick look. Yeah, some hot glue's not strong enough there, so I'll re-glue that back on there. But basically that's how that works. So let me show you what we have. We have an NTM 2700 prop drive, and then inside here 2200 3-cell battery, 60 amp speed controller, and obviously my receiver there. So this is how the design works. I'll just connect up the battery to show you how the plane, the features of the plane operate. I can do this one-handed. Just turn on my receiver. Right, that's all connected up. So I don't know how this will go on now. So basically, the features of the plane. So we have elevator, ailerons, 4x4. Then obviously on one switch we have this is the front slats and front slats and spoilerons, so they operate on the same. And then we have on the other switch the air brake and air take blanking. So that's how that works. So this is the quick run through of the YAK130. If you are watching this, and hopefully you are wanting to maybe continue watching the rest of the videos and eventually build the plane, I would highly recommend the design. It looks very good. I'm hoping on the result of a successful maiden we can have some more builders building this plane, because it does look very well. So hopefully if the plane flies well, then we'll have a successful design. Right, just to quickly show you what you do get when you download the plans. Obviously my plans are always free. All I do suggest is if you do like the design and the plane flies well and you're more than happy with it, then I would ask like a donation, but that's not necessary. It's only if you appreciate the time and the effort I've put into creating the plans. So basically what you will get obviously is this build video on YouTube, and then part of the plans you'll have a full part list as so. These parts are the part numbers that are referenced in the build video. So you'll get prints, well you'll be able to download prints of them parts list. You'll have, they're like a foam parts list, and you'll have a hardware parts list, details of the motor mount and everything there, and the carbon I used. Then inside that you have, which obviously won't be A3 size, but all the parts, all the reference label numbers as per the parts list, and that will be how you will follow it on the build video. So you will have all the sheets of the plans, and then also there's obviously an additional sheet for KFs, and there's also another additional sheet at the back which is for if you were to vacuum form the canopy. It's slightly bigger because obviously the when you've rolled the foam over the top, you've got to allow for the extra 3mm, so this is actually, the base of that is slightly bigger, so you'll have a slightly bigger canopy floor if you want to go down the vacuum forming of the canopy route. So I've included everything in here, all the plan sheets, so it's all available via my YouTube channel. So carry on watching the build thread and thread even, and then hopefully once on a successful maiden of this plane I will have some more videos up, and feel free to comment, and it'd be great to have some more builds of this plane. Thank you very much. Right, the first part of the build will be to take parts 1 and part 2. So here we have part 1, which is the main fuselage body, and part 2, which is the front of the nose, which goes to there. So basically you take the main fuselage body and the nose, and what you do is you obviously once you've cut the parts out, you glue this seam here. I also add some cocktail sticks for a bit of extra support, bit of strength, epoxy glue down here, cut and pick the hole for the carbon rod here, and also the carbon rod here as per the plans. I epoxy glue that in, and also use some UH glue on that as well, but that is basically the first step of the build. Right, the second stage of the build is to use parts 3 and parts 4. Part 3 is the right hand wing and part 4 is the left hand wing. Just want to mention at this point I do not cut the front slats out. I leave that until I've fitted the KF2 later. Bomb supports optional here. I'm going for the full package on this plane, so I will have these cut. So going over to the actual wing assembly, I have cut and beveled the control surfaces for the flap and the ailerons, and then butted the two wings together with cocktail sticks here and here, and epoxy glue down all the centre. Just turning over, we have the 3mm carbon spar here as per the plans. That is just to add the support for the wing. Obviously you can see the bomb hole supports there and there. We've also at this stage cut and picked, should I say, the areas for where the 5mm carbon tube goes. These are not for supports, these are for the control rods which pivot for the control surfaces basically. So I use a 5mm carbon tube with a 3.5mm ID, and then I have a 3mm carbon tube going inside the 5mm one, and then it will control the flap. The flap here and the aileron here. So that is the stage complete at stage 2. Right, at this stage of the build I just want to show you the method that I'm using for my control surfaces. Basically this can be done however you want. You might have better ways of doing this than I have, but this is how I have decided to do it. Basically I'm using 5mm carbon spars with 3mm carbon spars inserted inside them, and then I have epoxy glued servo control horns on the ends. On this particular one for the ailerons I want to use one servo, so I've got one servo mounted there, and I use these pivot style arrangements here on the arms, and then I've got ball joints on these arms here, and then also these pivots here as well. So I've laid the carbon in, the 5mm carbon with 3mm carbon inserts in, and glued them in place. So now we have the movement like that. So the plan is, because I've used the ball joints here, I'm hoping that because of the movement of the servo, I'm hoping that will work. I've also done the same for the flaps. Remember, this is going to be on a switch, so it's going to be flaps here. Well, it's going to be spoiler-ons for me. Leading edge slats, which are still not cut in as of yet, and then also a bomb drop, which I'm going to do from here. So I've actually laid the 3mm carbon spar all the way through from this length here to this length here, and then got one control horn in the middle, and then 2 lengths of about, I think it's about 100mm of 5mm tube laid in there, and that's then glued in, and then you can see that how the movement works there. So I'm planning on this particular arm here to control the flaps, and this particular arm here to control the front slat and what will be the bomb drop. So that's basically the arrangement I have currently. Like I say, you don't need to follow this exact arrangement for the control surfaces, but that's just what I've done. I'm now going to assemble the main wing into the fuselage and go from there. Right, for this step of the build we're going to need parts 5 and part 6, and also part 7 and part 8. Basically it's part of the KF2. We use the KF2 on the installation at this stage to align the main wing with the fuselage body. So just to run you through how I do this, basically first I spray glue the KF2 onto the wing, aligning the position here, and then also there's like a back part of the KF2, so almost like a separated piece of foam, just so when you lay the top piece on, everything's all flush. I lay this bit on as well. So firstly spray glue and align this top bit of KF2 here, and then the back piece. And then what that gives you the ability to do then is to line the fuselage up. So then I epoxy glue down the centre and underneath as well, and then butt the fuselage body up to the KF2, and that gets your perfect central position there. As you can see, I've still left the paper on the KF2 here. This is so I can know the position of the front slat to cut, which will be cut later on. So this is one of the only parts that I leave the paper on, because I cut the KF2 out later, at a later stage of the plans. So what I will do now is proceed with spray gluing the other KF2 on the other side, and laying a bit of epoxy on the inside to get a nice strong fixing, and then I'll start laying some other parts on. Right, for this part of the build we're going to use parts 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17. Right, first
part 9. Part 9 basically glues in this position here, so it slots in from underneath through the slot in the fuselage and butts up to this edge here. From that then we can use parts 12, 13, 14 and 15, which are these parts here. Basically, for instance, you can laminate parts 12 and 13 together, so we've got a 12mm piece, and that slots into the main body. There's actually a hole in there as well, and you laminate the two together and slot it in there, and it butts up to that top edge of the wing there and against the body. Then basically to move on to the extra supports that are on the nose, parts 10 and parts 11. These are these two parts here. They are installed in the same manner. They slot down, so just epoxy glue them in place. And there we have that part. And then parts 16 and 17 are the 3mm KF4s. You don't need to put these on if you don't require, but I wanted to install these on my build, so that's where they line up to. Basically you just line up from the edge here, it just comes in from the end there because that's where the end of the wings slot on later on. But basically what actually the KF4 gives you the benefit of as well, it gives you the areas for where the bomb holders or supports, as you wish to say, would slot in there. So it's got it's notched out anyway, it slots in there and glues in place there and there either side and there. So it's just worth noting that yours might be, well, your plans will be slightly different. Your position will actually be here because I've made my aileron servo arm too long, so it's amended in the plans to be 20mm back, so your position will be here. It gives better equalisation of measurement between the bombs as well. Mine's quite tight to the edge, but it was a design change at the end, so hopefully yours will sit here like suggested. So that's this part of the build. Following build, I will now I've laid on the KF4s, I will progress to cutting out the front slats and hinging them, and then we'll progress on to developing the front of the fuselage and the nose. Right, that's the end of this part. Right, just to talk about the front slat and getting the hinge surface into place. Basically, when the paper's on, obviously, as you can see from the previous video, I cut down with a very sharp Stanley knife blade down the sides there. It takes a little bit of time because obviously you've got 3 layers of foam, but once you've done it, you'll have something that looks like that. This is obviously from the other side, which I've not quite hinged yet. Just wanted to tell you how I've done this. I have not angle cut the inside. I've just literally straight cut that. I'll sand it slightly so it's smooth, and then I've angle cut this one. Because the amount of movement that I need is not a great amount for the front slat. I don't want a major amount of movement, so I haven't bothered hinging both sides. So get a good angle on that, and that will be enough to for your pivot. So as you can see on this one, I've laid the tape on the top, and then on the bottom, laid the tape in there like so, you can see, and that comes up like that. So we've got flat, up, flat, up. So let me show you from the top. So we're talking roughly that amount on the front slat, which I think is plenty. So I'm happy with that anyway, because it's going to be linked with the flap, which is going to be the spoiler on. Now just to show you what I also did at this stage, I'm laying the bomb supports in place as well at this stage, so that when I put the to explain this now, when I connect the front slat in place, I just so my control rods are in line. This is going to be the one for unleashing the bomb here somehow. Not fully decided how it's going to happen yet, but these are going to be in place. these are slightly long on the plans at the minute, which I'm going to make sure that they're short, so I don't get any problem with the spoiler on. But saying that, it is going to be a spoiler on, not a flap, so it shouldn't cause any problems. So that is this stage. I'll show you a short video following this, and that will be the front slat activated and the full servo setup all complete for the wing, so you can see how that works. Right, here we have the video of the servo setup for the front slats and the ailerons and the flaps. So the flaps are actually spoilerons, so this is how it works. As you can see, they all need trimming up so they're both even both sides yet, but that can be done later. So that's how it works there. And the ailerons, I'll just quickly show you underneath what I've done. So here we have it, the arm going to the front of the front slat, connecting onto here, and then the one onto the flap, and then this one here onto the aileron. So aileron, spoileron, front slat. Right, for this part of the build, we're going to take part 26. This is the first part that's going to be rolled foam, and it is the part that's underneath the cockpit. So it's the fuselage body. So we get this part, we cut this part out. At this stage, with all the rolled foam parts, I do not take the paper off initially. I leave it on because I want the dotted lines for where I score the foam, because this will be like the inside of the foam, so it'll roll this way. So basically you score all the lines on here. Well, how I do this is with a piece of wood and a pizza cutter. Initially I line the piece of wood up against the foam and apply liberal pressure using the pizza cutter to mark the foam. Now this might not be the last part of the scoring procedure, but once you've done that, I take this off. Just before I say that, before I do that, I'll just show you here. I have not cut this part out yet, because having cuts like this, where it's going to be rolled, really, well, it's part that could be susceptible to cracking. So I do not cut this out yet. So what I do is then I remove this piece once I've scored all the areas, and then we have this. As you can see the score marks on there. What you might keep this part of the paper for now, because once we've rolled this foam, and we will lay this part back on and mark the area for cutting this part out. So put that to one side. Now if your score marks aren't quite deep enough, what I would advise here is maybe taking a very blunt knife and a ruler and just scoring them slightly deeper, because what you'll hear is you'll hear the foam starting to crack, and that's when you know that you've scored deep enough. So this is the first part of the rolling stage. And the second part involves hot water, so I'll show you that in the next video. Right, fill your sink with hot water, not quite boiling but pretty hot. What you do then is you submerge the foam into the hot water, leave it for a couple of minutes. Then I use some quite thick heavy duty rubber gloves because I don't want to burn my hands when I'm in there, and I put hands in the water and manipulate the foam down the seams. Now I'll do this with both hands and try and manipulate down each of the seams at a time, and just slowly, don't try and do too much in one go, and just keep manipulating all the way down one seam until you start getting some flex in there. Because once you've got a bend in there, even though at the moment it's like it's only so curved, that will be enough now, because I've already stretched the outer skin. By doing this, it will bend completely to give me the desired shape that I want. So I have manipulated this foam a lot now. I would say that the most key areas are these top ones here, because they pull over quite a lot in the plans, and because they're on the edge, they're most inclined to break. So manipulate them slowly in the water, hot water, until you get a bit of flex in them. So as you can see that one there now, I can bend it quite tightly over. But you might find that you have to do this a couple of times, because you might have
might start cracking the foam, but once you've mastered the art of doing it, you'll be fine. I did actually go over my score lines with a blunt knife again with a ruler, just so that they were slightly deeper, because that is the key to doing all of this. Now you might find that using a heat gun is better. I don't personally. I like this method because having hot water, you get a nice even distribution of heat across the whole surface for bending the foam. That's my opinion anyway. And plus, I've tried to keep all the parts to a size where it will fit in a sink. Maybe I might have to do what the intakes in the bath, but it can still be done. I will, before I move on, I will just quickly tell you that I will now glue this part. Well, what I will do now is take this out, dry the foam. You can leave it overnight or whatever, or just dry off with a tea towel. It doesn't actually absorb into the foam. I will lay on the paper over the outside and cut this piece out now, as I showed you earlier, and then I will apply to the plane. Right, now you've rolled the fuselage body foam, you now put it into position. What I did first, on the plans I'm going to mark a cutout on the spine. This will be to cut out at this stage, just before you put the fuselage body on. I won't say to cut this out initially, just because it will, when you're playing with the rest of the plane, get it into shape, it'll make this area dead weak. So this will be a cutout later. So before you pull the paper off, if you just mark the areas, maybe pierce through the paper, just stab into the foam with a hole in each corner, then you know where you're going from. So basically, once you cut that out, what you do then is you lay in this base area here. This is for where the battery will be positioned, so you've got a bit of movement space here. So this part, I'll give this part number and call it the fuselage, front fuselage base, for instance, or something similar to that. Then basically, just to go over what I've done here, I've had to modify this piece as I've glued it into position, because it was slightly big in places and needed a bit of work. I did plan initially to have it coming up here, a bit further out, but that compromised the canopy position, which will be the next part of the build. Now, your plans will reflect what we have here. So basically, what I recommend is laying some epoxy glue down the spine, and then starting at this end, apply hot glue on the spacers. That spacer there, so you button up to that first part, the first one that you laminated there, and then so you hot glue up to there, hot glue this one, and you fold that up into position and glue it there, and the same the other side. Say if you apply epoxy on the bottom, you're sorted then. Obviously lay your base in first, and then manipulate these bits around here to pull in and hot glue around there. Right, what I would recommend is I did actually break this piece here by forcing it too much, and I have glued extra pieces on here, but as I say, this will reflect in your plans. Once you've bent the foam, this is what I would suggest, is putting some maybe some of that hinge tape over this area here, just as you're doing the assembly here, so it holds this outer edge of this foam. So then when you really do put some stress on the foam and bend it into position, get it into position, hold it there for a second while the glue's curing, hot glue, and let go. Then later on you can pull that tape. Now, just to show you, at this stage you can trial fit some parts to see, make sure everything's okay and fits okay. So basically this is on the future parts, which is the top cover. So that sits in there, so you just want to make sure that sits there okay. Just dummy put in the other side. I had to make some slight insertions at this point here for the servo so everything sits true, but that part will basically sit in there, and the canopy, which will be part of the next build, but I've already built mine, just to show you, will sit something like that. So once I've done a bit of sanding work later, this should all marry up quite true.
so it's not sitting on flush. But I just want to try and minimise any gap between here and here. Here there's another part later that makes up this part here, so don't worry about that, but just a trial fit, that's what we're currently looking at. The next stage now, I'll build the canopy. You'll see a build video of the canopy, and then following that I may insert this part, or I may go on to the nose yet.
Right, for this part of the build we're going to take parts 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 and part 34. 34 being the top of the canopy made out of 3mm. This all makes up the full canopy assembly. So basically you take part 29 initially, which is this part here. There's a couple of score marks here which you need to make. I think there's 3 in total. I mean, can you quite see them? But there's 3 in total. One here, one here, one here. Score them. Again, put in some hot water and bend, because that will make up the contoured shape of that front. So then what you do is you'll glue that in place. The top, the spine of the canopy. This will then fold up to meet that, glued in place. You then put the spacers of the canopy, the smaller one being the front one, which slots on there like so. Second one, slightly larger part there, and then the back one, which slots into that notch there, like so. This one will need angled cutting, so it all butts up flush. So once you've basically got to that stage and all glued up in place, you then take the top of the canopy, again in some hot water, submerge for a couple of minutes, and then start bending the foam in this direction and in that direction. Once you've got the foam bent, curved a little in the hot water, bring out, allow to dry, and then just bend the foam around onto the canopy. It should bend quite easy. Once you've kind of stretched this Depron slightly, it does lend itself to bending a little better there. So on the 3mm I don't score anything, I just heat, bend roughly into shape and then apply to the top. So that is how you build the cockpit. Right, here we have the finished cockpit. This is after a little bit of sanding around the edges. He's tidying up a little bit more. Basically, one side hot glued everything into place, held it down. I laid some 15mm strips of the 3mm foam just over the top there to support the just basically to cover the join lines. This also falls into place with the I suppose it's the supports inside the cockpit and the real plane. That's why I put the cuts in them places. So that is your finished cockpit with the roll foam. I'm quite happy with that, really. I think it looks pretty good. Once you sand it, you'll be even more happy, I think. So that's generally what that looks like. Right, for this part of the build we're going to complete the nose. Basically, to do the nose you'll need part 27 and 28, and then also part 36 and 37. Part 36 and 37, just remove that canopy, are these spacers here and here. So they butt up either side of the spine onto the initial nose spacer, which is in there. That just gives us an area where we can glue the nose onto. So basically same again as what you did with the canopy, rolled foam nose. So take for instance part 27 first, which is at the bottom. You will cut this part out, use a pizza cutter again as I did before to mark on the areas for where the scores are, remove the paper, and then I have found that the scores aren't quite deep enough. So I use a blunt knife and go over the scores. You can tell when the scores are deep enough because the foam actually cracks. You hear it like crackle as you go, not cutting it but indenting it. And then that's the stage you want, because you can actually feel the flex in the foam then at the time
when it's at that stage. So then when you leave it in the hot water for a minute and then manipulate it, you get the good shape that you want. So that's how to do the nose. You hot glue underneath here, and obviously this front spacer, and all down the bottom of the spine, and lay the nose into place. Then you take the top part of the nose and do exactly the same. This is these edges are, I've actually added a chamfer on them afterwards, so they marry up better when it's glued. You can cut them on at the start of the stage, but I think it's just as easy to do afterwards. So the top has actually got a slight contoured edge, so it meets up properly. So this stage you lay up the nose and then you hot glue that into place as well. It's quite hard to show you and do it, but that's basically it. So then once you've sanded all that, it should look quite a good 3D nose. Right, on this next part of the build, we're going to use parts 38 and 39, which are what I would probably call the top of the base, which go on here. I'm sure I'll think of a better name than that for them. And also parts 40 and 41. These are the parts, the air intake blanking, which move down to block the air intakes and come back up to fill the gap in the thing. Now these parts don't necessarily need to be cut, you can just use these parts, but it depends on how well you've cut these out. I used two separate ones, just the way I did the design. So basically it's a bit of a more of a complex part of the build, this specific part is. So basically the first part of the procedure will be to basically, you will lay on these tops like so, and then you will draw around the area that's cut out here, and so you'll have something like this. You'll then cut that out. It doesn't need to be accurate, I just cut square basically, and then you pop that out so that you end up with something that looks pretty much like that. Then from there you'll take these top pieces, and just clear some space. Right, and there'll be a pick line marked here. So you'll pick that out. On this particular one you have the arm, so it's got the recess cut in it as well. And you'll pick that out and you'll glue in with epoxy glue your 5mm carbon in there, and then you'll do the same on the other side, but this hasn't got the recess for the servo arm, so it's a full depth. So again, you glue your 5mm in there. And what I did with these intake blanks, basically on here, what I did was cut down the end with a Stanley knife carefully, both sides, and picked out, and then I laid some aluminium tube, which is 3mm, and slots quite nicely over the 3mm carbon. So I epoxy glued that into place first for both parts. Then I got my 3mm piece of carbon, I inserted it into the 5mm carbon, and then threw into these aluminium tubes into place there, and glued into place. So basically what I did, I used a cocktail stick and applied some glue inside there, laid this into place, and pushed the carbon rod into place until it set there. I then also epoxy glued this servo arm onto the 3mm carbon. So now we have a moving intake. I'll put a bit of tape on this to hold it into position. Typical, I can't get it off. Let's take this off. Show you how it works. So yes, now we have the movement we require. So it blanks, it just needs a bit of sanding to sort it out, but that's basically what we have. So you blank and then back up. Basically at the closed position you want your servo arm back, glued back into place, and then when it's blanking you want it forward. So that is the procedure anyway. So let's put this piece of tape back on. From here now, it's not complicated, but it's what you'll need to do now is glue these into place. What I recommend is probably
some epoxy glue initially, lay it all down this edge here, all down the inner edge all the way across, and then also I will put a quick splurt of spray glue on this area here. And what you'll do initially is you'll need to put epoxy glue in this aluminium tube for the other side. Now what I did with the aluminium tube, just to give you a clue, stop the glue coming out the other side, I actually cut one end with a hacksaw, cut the other end with a pair of pliers, and it basically pinched the end together. So that was how I did it. So yeah, use a cocktail stick, put some epoxy glue in there, and what you'll do is you'll start by getting this side, you will slot it into place. There's a hole for the servo arm there, and as that comes into place there, you will push the other side into place like so. And as that's coming into place, just before that arm starts to protrude out of there like so, you'll need to put that into place. So what I'll probably do is I'll tape this into position on top here, and then as I bring it all together, that'll fill into there like so, and then that top will be glued. So that'll be glued to there like so. So it'll be glued across the board, and there you have your intake blanks set up there. The servo obviously will go in here, so this will control this back and two, and also there'll be an additional arm back to where the air brake's going to be back over here. So complete that procedure, and then I will move on to what probably will be the back of the canopy here, and then complete the top of the fuselage down the back here all the way to the tail, before I then progress on to the actual air intakes themselves. Right, for this following part you're going to need parts 40 and 41, and also part 42, which is there. Right, now basically you take parts 40 and 41, which are these long parts here, and what they do is they line up down this edge of the plane here, and basically you just butt that up to the front there where the curve is, and all the way down to where it meets there. Now I spray glue these in place, so I take them off, lay them on a sheet of paper, and then just spray glue them, take them off, and then come down and stick them on. Now I stick them over the intake flap, because later you'll cut that out from underneath, but what we'll do is, we won't do that as of yet, because there's another piece to go on over the top of this, and then another small one as well, because it's a laminated effect, which will then be sanded flush, and then we'll cut that out there on the intake flap, because the intake flap is also contoured in that effect. So basically from there you stick these two pieces on both sides anyway, so just them first two, 40 and 41, you spray glue them into place. Now what that gives you then is the ability to align this top edge all the way down. So first of all you take the part 42, I think it is, which is the back of the canopy. Now this part is a little bit tricky, and what I probably would recommend is spray gluing the top, not spray gluing, sorry, adding some tape over the top here when you're bending it into shape. So take the part, score the lines as marked, maybe apply some tape over here, add it to the hot water. The tape shouldn't come off in the hot water, especially if you use hinge tape, and bend and crease them lines and bend it into the desired shape. I also used elastic band and held it round basically a mug while it was in the hot water, and soaked it for a minute, as you can see in this following little clip. Then from there, basically, I took out the hot water, took the tape off, and stuck it down in place here. I actually initially used epoxy glue down these sides, dropped it into place, and what will happen is these front edges will stick up in the air slightly. So you basically align it with this top edge here. Now that won't fit completely flush initially. What you need to do is, once the epoxy glue is dried, you apply a bit of hot glue here, hot glue at the back, and you bend that down until it touches the top, and that gives it this sort of half kind of rounded effect with a bit of a flat top, because that matches your canopy. Then also hot glue this bit here, stick them down, bend them down. What you might need to do after that is trim it according to the canopy. So place the canopy in place and then trim according to. I've left a little bit of excess, hopefully, so that you can play with this. Maybe you just get away with sanding. I need a little bit of work. One side's worse than the other, but if I can just place the canopy in place like so, just to give you an idea. I might even need to stick a bit of foam on this side, but there's a little slight airspace there. But I think it's because this front edge here needs a bit cutting away inside, whereas this side, I don't know if you can see, sits pretty flush. So that's basically this part of the build. I will then go on to producing this part here and then further down, but this part is where I'm going to incorporate the air brake, so this is going to take me a little bit more time to get sorted, but that is the current stage of the build.
Right, I want to talk you through the next part of the plans, which is the air brake. This has been a slightly complex procedure for me to get right. Hopefully I've got it all correct now and will be reflected in the plans. So this is how it will work. Basically you need parts 45, parts 46, and we've got parts 47, 48 and 49. That makes up the air brake arrangement. So basically, just to quickly outline, that on part 45, the narrower side, this side, goes to the back, and the larger side goes to the front here. So basically, first cut out that part, just the outline edge of it, and roll the foam, score the lines, roll the foam in hot water. Once you've rolled that foam in hot water, you then glue part 47 to the larger end and 46 to the narrower end. Basically, you will then end up with something that looks like this. There you go, like so. Then what you'll do is, in the template section, you will have another example of this, or you can use the one that you pulled off the original. You basically lay it over the top again in this position now. You lay it over the top again. Because the foam has been stretched slightly because you've rolled it, the edges won't quite line up, so just align it centrally. Once that's held in place, maybe use a bit of spray glue to hold it in place. That's what I did. I then cut out the air brake, like so. On this particular example, I cut all the way through, but on the plans, as you can see, you cut just short because you've glued that seam there. You'll cut just inside there. So then you'll have something that comes off like so. Once you've done that, the actual air brake part then will actually probably flex out a touch. So that's where parts 48 and 49 come into play. 48 being the topper side there, the one with the chamfers on. That glues just inside there. Probably I actually butted this up to the end on the actual ones, and then on the other one probably about 10 mil in. Right, anyway, so let me get rid of that part. So here we have it, the completed air brake. Like I was just saying then, came about 10 mil in on that part, and right up to the end there with the glue seam. So drop that back in once you've done that, and then you'll then need to cut the lollipop stick hinge marks. Now what I use for this, as I just said, is lollipop sticks. Ice lolly sticks to be precise. 2 complete sticks here and here, and probably a half stick here and here. That has been screwed together with the screw off a servo arm, a micro servo mounting. So I've over drilled the outer one 2 mil, the inner one is 1.5 mil. So this is the pivoted edge. So cut them out there. Remember to cut down, because not on the angle. So cut down, and then this piece will be very flappy in the middle. But then just hot glue these into position. That's what I've done there, like so. So then we have the hinge arrangement there, like so. And this is as per the actual plane hinges. It hinges back here, and I like the idea of doing that. You might think of a better way of doing this, but this is how I've decided to do it. What you will need to do then is you'll need to devise the arm arrangement. I've actually gone like this. First I wanted to do a different style arrangement with a double pivot here for a bit of reinforcement, but so that's why I've got this screwed in here. You can probably just sink this in here and then glue it in place, and then I've just glued it directly against this support here, and then I've got one of these sliding clips which you lock into place, and then I've had to cut out the room for the servo arm, which is as per mentioned on the plans, but as I say, it'll be a cut later because otherwise there's just no strength in that part. So once you've cut that out like so, you'll have something like that. I'll also give you in the template section overall sizes of servo arms as well, so that you've got full arrangement. So that's what that looks like, and that mounts on the plane like so. Just like that, and then it will connect onto the arm in here, and then when obviously pressed, it will do that. You'll see that in the following video when it's all connected up anyway, but just wanted to go through that part of the procedure. Just want to say you actually, with the sliding lockable position arm arrangement, this is ideal because you can get your Allen key in there and tighten that up. So that's how that works, and then you can push it back in and then clip it back onto the servo. So that's the part for the air brake. The following videos I will complete the back, and I will also show you a clip of the air brake setup. Right, here's the setup for the air brake. Now I've connected the servo arm in position here, and just quickly mention you need to cut out the area of where you've laid this part in here. I think it's parts 41 and 42 each side, obviously they're glued in over the place. When I cut through, the parts actually popped off, but I'll be gluing them back on because when I sand all that side down, that's part of the contour which needs to be on the flap as well. But at the moment it's just been removed for the purpose of the video. It'll be glued back on later and it'll all be sanded smooth. So here's the air brake itself in operation, and the intake flaps all off the one servo. So this is the kind of setup we have. So activated, down. So that is the arrangement. Now I'll move on to completing the fuselage in the next video. Right, for the next part of the video, to complete the back of the fuselage, we're going to take parts 54 and 55 and 56, and also we've made some spacers as well, which is 50 and 51 and 52 and 53. So basically you lay the spacers on the back of the tail here, because there's nothing to line up to here. So basically I'm going to say parts 50 and 51 will be the smaller spacers at the back here, and then parts 52 and 53 are the larger space here, because it does actually decrease as it goes back. So I've laid the bigger space at the front, I've just laid them the other side of that servo there, and the back ones I've actually laid them so that when you put the part on, there should be a little bit of overhang slightly for the back to go on as well. So this part here, when that slides on the back, can touch it as well. So hot glue these spacers into place. Let me get this on here. So that will go on to there, and that one obviously will also go on to there. It's sliding on a bit more, yeah. Seem to get it on at the moment. So yeah, and obviously you've rolled both of these parts as well beforehand. So once they've been rolled, you can just literally bend them slightly into place. You might want to chamfer cut this one maybe on the back, and then hot glue them all into place, and then that will complete the whole the top of the fuselage then. Right, moving on now, where we have the top complete all the way down, we will flip the plane over. What I did firstly was I brought the servo wire from the top there, from this servo, pulled it back through here, also took this servo cable, and we cut a hole
there and there, and then dropped it through because I want the receiver to sit in that position there. So that's where all the wires are going to come through. It'll be away from the battery, which will be here, and the receiver will be there. Right, so firstly that was the first step I did that. Right, next part of the build, you'll need parts 58 and 57. So these two parts, 58 literally drops in hot glue into place there like so. 57, another piece that you roll, cut this section in later here as marked on the plans because it'll just break dead easy otherwise. So then this literally just slots in there like so. Again, hot glue into position there, bend that round, hot glue round there. Right, moving on now, takes parts 61 and 62, which are support handles. Basically, it's an additional support to what's already on the spine there. So epoxy glues in place either side, so fit there and there. This adds additional support to this part of the spine and adds for a good handle to launch the plane, because generally the bottom of this plane is too large to grab hold of anywhere, so that is why that has been incorporated. I've done this on previous designs and I feel that it's very beneficial. Right, once that's been done, completing the air intakes, take parts 59 and 60. These will be rolled scored and rolled down these lines here, as you can just about see there. So there's numerous lines there. What I would say for any rolls that are more than 45 degrees, always apply tape to the outside. For instance, this one, the first one I rolled, I didn't apply tape, and you can just about see some fracture marks here and on the edge there. That is because I didn't apply tape initially, but when I applied tape and then rolled it, as you can see, perfect rolls. That is what we're after, so apply tape to the opposite side of the scores, sink in the hot water, roll, pull out, and then lay onto the plane. Sorry. Right. Fit there's some notches here that drops into place there like so. You might need to trim that inner edge of the fuselage so it sits quite flush up there, because you might have it's quite close for this intake blanking. Now the intake blanking doesn't blank off everything, but just to get it some kind of blanking, it fits. It comes up and blanks part of the air intake. Now just make sure that doesn't clash with this, so make sure that's trimmed down nicely on the inside there, that pulls over nicely. It's worth testing that before you glue everything into place. So fit that into there. This outside edge here actually fits inside the KF4. If you don't have the KF4, it's about 20mm from that side there, 15 to 20mm. This then drops down there and glues into position halfway on the spine there. I've also added some additional support bits here for areas for gluing. I've only added a little bit each side, as quite a lot of this area will be cut away for a hatch to get to the servos. So that basically completes that. Once everything is in position, like I say, test them air intake blanking if you've got it, because it's going to be quite tight in there. You need to make sure when it's glued in place you've got it in the correct place. Finalise that step. I have these parts here, which are parts, let's go to the plans, 61 and 62. So sorry, not 61, 62. They will be 63 and 64. I've already used other parts. So they will be parts 63 and 64. These will fit down here. So just glue them into place there, and that completes the bottom there. So it just drops in there. Just makes a nice clean bottom of the fuselage. So complete all that step, and then we'll continue to do the end of the tail. Right, just want to talk you to what will be probably the penultimate part of the build. For this part of the build, you're going to need parts 66 and 67, which are the rear underneath tail parts of of the plane, and also 65. But 65 won't look like this, and it'll probably be on a different sheet. It's a full elevator rear, so there'll be both of these side by side, and then you'll put a carbon piece in the middle. Right, first with the elevator, obviously you'll need to hinge the part here. Like I say in the plans, it'll all be marked up, but you'll have a full piece here, like so. There'll be a mark on the plans for where to fit the carbon spar for a bit of reinforcement. Cut and hinge the elevator control surfaces, and then there's a cutout in the body and in the spine, and the elevator slides into place. So glue that into place. It basically sits on the bottom half of, you can see there quite, see that's the elevator, and that's the bottom half of the top of the plane, basically, if that makes sense. So fit the elevator. As I say, I've already completed this part of the build, but want to show you how I did it. So basically, start with the elevator. Then from there, you'll need part 66, 67, the rear tail. You roll these parts down the crease lines here. I actually did these twice, and I found it with better results. By that I mean I laid packing tape on the outside, scored the inside, rolled it one night, and actually came to fit it the following night, but it's still at about 120 degrees angle, so I heated it again in the hot water and rolled it to a 90 degree angle. Now I found if you really want a tight roll, it's better to do it twice, let it go cold again, and then re-roll it, and then you won't fracture the foam at all. So as you can see, perfect roll. So roll each side. It'll be a full piece, this cutouts won't be evident as yet. They will be marked on the plans later for the exhausts. So basically hot glue down the body, line it up, and then down the spine, half of the spine, sit each one into place, glue in place, and then that part is complete. Basically then you'll take your paper template here, there'll be a mark out on here for where the exhausts will be, which are these parts, lay the template over the top and cut out the exhausts. At this stage I also fitted the Elevon servos, so it's there, and I've also brought them through the exhaust, just made a cutout on the side here, and the arms come through there. Now I will do a temporary cutout on the plans as well, for where that arm comes out, so you can expect to see on this part here the exhaust cut out in this kind of area, and then the servo arm cut out as well. So basically you fit them, these two parts, and your elevator, and then you have this arrangement. You fit your servo arms like so, or you could use the piano wire style servo arms in the silicone tube. That might be a nice neat little finish that you could just poke through here. Might be nicer, cleaner finish than that, but that's what I've decided to go for. So they are the exhaust holes. Then to complete the part of the tail, you need parts 68, 69 and 70. Now these parts basically glue on. This is notched. You sit that on there, that glues on, and then 69 and 70 just glue on either side, and that completes the back. Now your back will look slightly different because in the plans I'm going to include some notches here, here, here and here for where the motor mount will clip on, and then hot glue into place, but I'm not added them to my plans yet. So that is the penultimate part of the plane complete, and then the finishing touches will be completed in the following part. Right, this is the last part of the build video. Right, what you'll need now to finish off is parts 83 and 84. These are optional really. They are 3mm Depron, which are used to strengthen the vertical stabilizer at the back. And also it hides a carbon spar, so that's what I've done there. So as you can see, it's fitted both sides. You can see there and there. So that is marked on the plans of where it should be positioned on the main spine. So if I'd say when you cut out the main spine, just mark the top edges there, then just place it up there later on. So that's parts 83 and 84. Right, there's a couple of bits on this part of the build. I'll go through the next parts. Now you'll need parts 71 and 72, and also 73 and 74. These basically mount on here as so. The larger parts, parts 71, 72, butt up just short of the end there, so just fit them wherever you deem best. I spray glued them and then come and stuck them on, and then parts 73 and 74, these little parts, I just lined them up with that edge of that seam there, again spray glued on. The reason for these parts is that it's a laminated part, which literally I'm going to sand to add a bit of a contour to that finish there. I decided to laminate this surface because of these intake flaps. For me to put a beveled rolled piece of foam there was near impossible with what I wanted to do with the intake flaps, so that's why it's these three that are laminated. Just to say, I did cut my middle one out a touch. You could actually use that one here to butt up when the flap closes. It's your choice on that, really, to be fair. One of the bit I did on this stage is I added a couple of cocktail lollipop sticks to the front. That is so that the canopy slots on there either side of the spine, and then once I've done a bit of sanding, I'll have a magnet at the back which holds that back down. So that's how the canopy will fit on and secure on in place. Let's take that off 1 second. And to finish off on the bottom, I hinged the rear flap, the underneath flap. When I say flap, I mean cover for the electrics. So that is just hinged on, and there'll be a magnet towards the end round at the back. So that's the cover there. And to finish off the build completely, you'll need basically the bits on the end of the wings here, which is parts 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82. Right, here's a completed one, and here's an uncompleted one. Basically, what I say to this, you don't need to heat these, but I just manipulate the ends, just bend them slightly, just crease the foam with your fingers, and the same with these ones here. I would suggest, because of this cutout here, apply this one first with hot glue on there like so, and manipulate it round, glue that in place, then the other side here, and then the top in place, and you should end up with something that looks kind of like that. I haven't glued these on yet because I want to sand these down to be completely cylindrical, and they basically slot on there like so. So that completes the end of the wing. I'll do a further video with the bombs, probably a separate video, but that is what your completed build with the canopy on should look like. Following this video, following the completion of this, I will bevel the front edges, tape the front edge, bevel that top edge, tape that top edge, and just generally sand over the whole lot. And then finally I will need to mount a wooden piece of 3mm ply there for the motor mount, and fit the motor, and that is the completed plane. So if you've finished it, if you got to this stage, you should have the build complete. So congratulations, and good luck with your maiden flight. Right, I just wanted to give you one last video of the YAK130, just to show you the paint scheme, decals and so on. I followed the traditional YAK130 paint scheme with the grey and the stars. Basically first though, sanded and lined the edges, sanded the nose, smoothed down these laminated parts here. I used a product, Polyfiller 1 fill. It's a very lightweight filler to add over here to get the extra contour that I wanted with a bit of more sanding. I then paint using, for this one I use just an acrylic mix which has been thinned down. I use just a simple acrylic, white and black, mixed together to get the tone I wanted, and then I thin down using a household cleaning product, something like an antibacterial spray, one with no vinegar in or anything like that. I use 1 part paint, 1 part thinner. I just like it that way because it's a bit more easier to paint on. You have to use 2 coats. I use a simple brush. Now, it doesn't paint very well over the tape, but you have to live with that. Sometimes when you apply the second coat, you just try to pull it off again off the tape, so maybe you could tape afterwards. It's your choice. For the decals, I will provide a sheet with the decals on. What I recommend is you cut the decals out, you lay into position, and you take a pencil and you just literally draw over the decal, which indents the foam, to then give you like a stencil of where you need to colour in. Use a simple red marker pens for the stars, and I used a white tire pen for the white, or you could use white acrylic paint. It doesn't really make any odds either way. So that is how I've done the paint scheme. For the motor mount, I'm going to just spin this round if it will go. There you can see the motor mount. That is as per the parts list sheet. This is to scale, so you can cut this out, draw around it on a piece of 3mm ply, and fit it into place like so. And here's the NTM prop drive, 2700. There, that's the motor for the plane with 6 before prop on. Then just to quickly outline what I did there as well. 1 second, just move this paint out of the way. So I have the motor wires actually come through. I've cut a hole in the bottom there, and I literally run them down the plane like so. I've actually put the ESC in the front here just to give me an extra bit more weight. Whether that's the best thing to do or not, I'm not too sure at this minute. So the ESC is here, my receiver will go here, and the battery here. I might have to cut through into this nose area a little bit from under in here to move the battery forward a slight bit more to hopefully get a bit more play on the centre of gravity. At the moment it balances roughly around this point here, which will be a very good point in my opinion for my maiden flight. I think myself it probably might balance around here, so I might have to move that battery a slight bit forward, but that should be achievable. So yes, I've put Velcro inside here and a Velcro strap for the battery. There's Velcro under this here as well. So then that is basically how the plane finishes to look. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the build video. I hope I've not waffled on too much, but I hope I've covered all the points that you need. And if you need any further assistance, drop a message to me via my either YouTube channel or by the build thread that's on RC Power's forum website. That's basically it, so enjoy.